This was about 15 years ago. My parents went out for a nice dinner for their anniversary and decided that I was old enough and responsible enough to be left alone for a few hours on a weeknight. I was almost 9, and we owned a fairly protective dog at the time, so it seemed like it would be fine. They leave, tell me to lock up and call if anything happens. I do so and proceed to party around the house like a rock star. 'Cause dude, I had the whole dang house to myself, and I could do whatever I wanted. Halfway through the Sailor Moon marathon, I get a knock on the door. I'm confused as all get out, 'cause it's only been about 2 hours, and they said they probably wouldn't be back until around 10. I guess Mama's left something she needed again, and swung by to grab it. My front door is a system of 2 doors, a super old, thick wooden door. The house was originally built in the 30s, and this door is still in the original piece. And then outside of that, a screen door. My dog is raising hell at the front door, but I pull her back to calm her down. She has a tendency to be reactive to most noises. Well, it's not my mom at the door. It's some middle-aged man I've never seen before in my life. Puppo is now basically feral, so I keep the screen door firmly closed and a hand on her collar as I ask the man what he wants. He starts in on this weird convoluted story about how he has 2 young twin daughters and how they got into a fight and that one of them ran away. This man then claims that he believes his daughter is hiding in my house and he would like to come in to look for her. I tell him that there's no such girl here and ask him why he thinks she would even be here in the first place. He goes into a long story about how this was the house they first lived in, and how it's the one she was born in, and how it was like a safe place for her. Stuff about how it would be the most likely place she would run away to. I felt kinda weird since I opened the door and this dude's story hasn't been helping his cause any, but now I know something shady is going down. I under no uncertain terms informed the guy that he must have the wrong house, because this house was built and has been lived in by my family since its construction. My dad was born in this house, and after my mom and dad told his parents that they were pregnant with my older sister, they gave it to them as a present to begin their family. He must be mistaken, 'cause I know all of this is fact. Hell, there were pictures less than 10 feet away from me on the wall of my dad and uncle playing in the front yard in the late 70s. By now, my dog is growling like crazy, and the dude is getting agitated. He insists that I don't know what I'm talking about, and that if I would just give him a few minutes to search for his daughter, he could be on his way. The latch on the screen door was broken, and I was putting all my strength at the time into holding my dog from the door. He opens the screen door with one hand, and with the other reaches for my closest arm. My crazy cocker goes fucking ballistic. She uses all her strength to lunge at him, gets a hold of his hand, and bites down hard. Now the man is yelling and confused. He pushes back against the screen door and slams it shut to get my dog off of him. Sadie gets pushed back indoors but is still raging. I quickly slam the door, lock it, and chain it shut. Run around the house to make sure all the other doors and windows are locked, and then hunker down in the bathroom, hyperventilating. I wait about 15 minutes till Sadie's growling has calmed down some. I check outside, and there's no man or his car. Both long gone. I call my parents and tell them that they need to come home right now. When they finally get home, I recount the whole story. Dad goes to check the front door, and sure enough, on the screen door jamb and the siding of the house is a large smear of blood. Sadie was treated like a queen and got a whole steak for her to eat on that weekend. Someone on the other post made the comment that a creeper dude probably didn't see Sadie as a threat because of her size. Well, I'm gonna quote something another Redditor had to comment. It's not the size of the dog in the fight. It's the size of the fight in the dog. This happened about 6 years ago now, when I was 20 and living in a shared flat while at uni. I had a job in a gig venue / dive bar, about a 30-minute walk from my flat. I typically walked or cycled to and from work, despite finishing at 1 to 2 a.m. or later. The city I was in was pretty small, and my walk took me through crowded, well-lit areas, so my only issues walking home at night were generally dodging drunk people throwing up outside bars, or getting accosted by people I know trying to get me to go for a beer. One night I was on my way home, and about 15 minutes away when a group of 6 or 7 guys who were walking down the street in the opposite direction started catcalling me and shouting at me to join them for a drink. Not a totally uncommon experience, so to start with I just laughed and waved them off. Then when they kept persisting and started to get ruder and louder in their shouts, I flipped them the bird and told them to fuck off. They shouted at me a bit more but kept walking in their direction. I figured they'd given up and carried on towards home. A few minutes later, I stopped to fix my shoelace and realized that the same group of guys was now following me, but now they were being completely silent. I was apprehensive but not too nervous at this point. I naively thought maybe they'd changed their minds about where they were going, even though they had done an about turn and were now heading away from the bars and clubs, like me. I picked up some speed and kept towards my flat. I rang my flatmate to see if she was home, but she wasn't. When I got to the end of my street, I turned off the main road and started running, hoping to get inside before they reached the road and saw where I lived. I thought I'd made it, but when I reached the door, I looked back and saw them gathered at the end of the street, looking at me. Now, the building was an old Victorian house which had been converted into flats, pretty common for the area. Ours was on the ground floor, and our living room and my flatmate's bedroom looked out onto the street, with big bay windows onto a little front garden. The building wasn't in the best repair. The main door into the stairwell had warped so it no longer locked, just shoved closed, and the building manager had been refusing to fix it. Anyway, I was inside the flat at this point, grabbing a beer and telling my flatmate's cat about the creepy guys that followed me. I went through the living room and just about passed out. They were in our garden, and the living room curtains were open. They were pointing and waving at me and laughing. I had no idea what to do, so I backed into the hallway out of sight, at which point they started banging on the window and shouting. This went on for 5 minutes while I debated to phone the police. Then the banging stopped and I heard more laughing. I looked out and one of the guys had dropped his trousers and was jacking off in front of the window. When he saw me, he started pressing against the glass and shouting all the things he'd do if I went outside to join them. Then I realized a few of his friends were missing. It became quickly clear that they had shoved open the broken main door and were now slamming against the door to my flat. At this point, the cat is going completely insane. I'm furious and terrified and had no idea what to do. I settled on grabbing a very heavy frying pan and positioning myself in the hallway where I could keep an eye on the door while I called the police. The police, bless them, turned up within 5 minutes, and as soon as they saw the lights, the guys took off. And just as well, because it turned out the door jamb had started to splinter. There were also some nice gifts left on the living room window. As far as I know, they never got caught. I can't really bring myself to think about what might have happened if the police had taken any longer and the guys had gotten through my door. So guys who tried to break into my home and jacked off on my window, let's not meet again. But thanks for giving me a reminder lesson about personal safety, and for giving me great ammo to get the building manager to fix our front door. Didn't enjoy cleaning the window though, and never had the curtains open again after dark. Hello. To start off, I'm a 25-year-old stay-at-home mother of 2, and I no longer feel safe in my apartment. When we moved in almost 3 years ago, I put a second lock on our door. Our daughter was only 2 at the time, so we put it on there to keep her in, but now I'm convinced it's helped to keep someone out. A few months ago, something very strange happened, and I didn't think too much about it at first. But it slowly made me feel very unsafe and very paranoid. Someone has been trying to open our door. The first time it happened, my daughter wasn't in school yet, and my son was only a few months old. My partner works different hours every day, but usually they'll let me know around the time he'll be home so I can unlock the top lock so he can let himself in with the key. My daughter was 4 at the time, and will usually greet her father at the door when he gets home. This night, it doesn't seem she greeted him, but someone else at the door. I was sitting on the couch with my infant son, and I thought I heard someone try to open the door, but it stopped because it was locked, which is normal. Sometimes my partner will try the door before unlocking. My daughter heard that and ran up to the door. For some reason, this time she decided she would unlock the door and open it to greet him. She doesn't normally do this. I heard her open the door and then shut it quickly. I was about to scold her for opening the door by herself when she came in and told me. It wasn't Daddy. I was very thrown off by this. She said it in a sweet, innocent voice like it's just another thing, but I kinda got freaked out. I went and locked both the locks to the door and asked her if it was the neighbors. She said no and that it was just some guy. She didn't really get why I was asking her these questions. I told my partner about it, and we told her the importance of never opening the door by herself again, and now I keep that top locked at all times. I kinda put it out of my mind and wrote it off as a weird one-time accident. A few weeks later, I felt like I had heard a familiar sound of the door trying to open, but being locked again, so I just tried not to have it get to me. One night at around 12:30 a.m., the kids were in bed and my partner and I were watching some late-night TV. We heard someone again try to open the door, but this time they rang the doorbell and slightly knocked. My partner looked out the peephole and saw 3 men. I told him not to answer it, and he said they left. I went to the window and looked outside, cautiously because I didn't want to be seen, but I never saw anyone leave. This made me believe that they may have been sitting in the stairwell waiting for us to answer the door. I felt like calling the police, but I wasn't completely sure of telling them some people rang the bell and tried to open the door would really be something they would even care about. I started to become a bit more paranoid, and honestly felt a little targeted. I'm sure that sounds silly, but we've lived here for 3 years, and only in the last few months has this been happening. Well, it's not over. And the scariest time is coming up. So about 2 or 3 weeks ago, my partner had another late night. This time, it was almost 3 a.m., and we heard a sound. Now, our daughter is about 5, but sometimes we'll have nightmares and come out to us. When she does, she usually will jump off her loft bed and run to her door. That night, we heard the sound of what we thought was our daughter waking up and running to her door, so my partner opened her door. Then he looked at me strangely, and right when that happened there was a giant thud at our front door, and another running sound. We realized then it was someone running on the stairs outside. My partner looked through the peephole and saw no one. I looked outside and couldn't find anyone either. That night I took my kids into our room, locked the bedroom door, and pushed something heavy in front of the door. After having a panic attack where I thought I might actually need medical attention, I silently cried myself to sleep. We get a hold of the landlord the next morning, and were told she would try to get someone to patrol the area. Since then, I don't open the door for anyone other than people I know, and nothing else really happened until today, which is why I'm posting this right now. I had just gotten out of the shower. My daughter is at school and my partner is at work. My son was in his pack and play. I was trying to get dried off when I hear a knocking at the door. I'm not expecting anyone, so I'm not going to answer it. Then I hear the door try to open. I didn't really know what to do since I'm sitting there naked, but I'm so tired of this I put a robe on and grab a knife just in case. When I look out the peephole though, there's no one there. I'm looking into moving. I can't handle being here, and I feel very unsafe and violated that someone keeps trying to open our door, especially with my kids here. I need to vent, so thanks for listening. And to the person or people who keep trying to get into our apartment, let's not meet. So, this is a story for which I was very young. It was a few years after I was born, so I don't remember a whole lot, only bits and pieces. I'd say I was 5 or 6 years old. My parents filled in the gaps for me, so I'm going to tell the whole version of the story, both my parts and theirs. We were living in an old farmhouse at the time. My parents were poor, so they rented from a landlord that owned a few small properties in the area. My dad worked in the steel mill on the midnight shift, so he worked some odd hours. This is relevant because it might be the only reason that we're still alive and that I'm able to write this story today. There was a crash. "Help! Help! He's going to rape me! Help me!" We jolted out of the bed we were in, and were fully awake in an instant. I was sleeping in bed with my parents at the time because I'd been having awful night terrors. My dad, who had just been switched from the midnight shift to days, jumped out of bed and cautiously made his way down the stairs, grabbing a poking stick from the fireplace in the living room. He got to the door when he heard it again. "Help! Oh my God, he's coming!" The woman's voice on the other side of the door began sobbing hysterically. "We have to help her. Open the door," said my mother. Mom is an inherently good woman who always goes out of her way to help people every single day of her life. She reached for the deadbolt, but my dad stopped her. He shot her a look and said cautiously through the door, "What's going on? Who's after you? Where is he?" The voice through the door responded, "I just need to get in before he gets here. Please." More sobs. My father turned on the porch light and said, "Stay up on the porch with your back against the door." He then opened the deadbolt, but not the chain lock. He slipped a brick that we used as a doorstop through the crack. "Take this, and use it to defend yourself if you need it. I'll be right on the other side of this door, and if he comes after you, I'll come out and help. In the meantime, I'm calling the police, and they'll be here soon." This is when the woman started to absolutely lose her mind. She began slamming her whole body against the door with a mindless fury. "What the fuck is wrong with you? Let me in this goddamn house right now. What kind of fucking people are you?" My dad forced the door shut completely and clicked the deadbolt home again. He immediately called the police and they came within 10 minutes. When they arrived, the woman was simply gone. The doorstop brick was sitting on one of the porch steps. My parents gave a description of the events and the woman as best they could. We tried our best to get to sleep in the following night, but Mom and Dad checked all of the windows and locks several times throughout the night. I don't remember understanding what happened, but I remember thinking my parents were acting strange and wondering why they didn't help this woman. I thought that the man snuck up and got her while we were calling the police. A few days later, we found out that the police had been called for a similar situation. My dad's brother-in-law worked in law enforcement and told us that this time, the police had happened to have a car down the street and arrived without lights or sirens. The officers saw the woman that my parents had described at the front door on top of the porch. When they began walking towards her, a man dashed out of the bushes from the side of the porch. They chased him down pretty quickly and recovered a long kitchen knife from the bushes where he had been hiding. The man and woman had been working together to try to gain entry to houses. The police surmised that the woman would get people to open the door and let her in, then let her partner in. God only knows what he would have done once he got inside. Once I heard this story and put it together with my memories of the event, it sent chills down my spine. Imagine what would have happened if my dad had been working the midnight shift, or if he had been asleep. He grew up in a very bad neighborhood, so he was always overly cautious about the people around him. Usually it was mildly irritating, but this time it may have saved our lives. What is up, guys? Blue Spooky here, as always. I just wanted to thank you guys so much for watching, especially if you made it this far to the end of the video. If you guys liked the video, please feel free to leave a like, comment, or subscribe if you feel so inclined. If you have any feedback or suggestions for stories you'd like to see, or anything like that, be sure to leave a comment below, because I always read all of the comments. I have a pretty big update for the channel for you guys. So, as you guys probably know, things have been pretty rough lately for the YouTube horror narrator community. Basically on YouTube, a bunch of advertisers pulled out, and now everybody's getting way less returns on their views and everything like that. So I wanted to announce that I finally set up a Patreon account where you guys can donate and contribute to the channel if you like. Of course, it's never necessary. None of my content will ever be necessary to be paid for or anything like that. Basically, what Patreon is it's just a tip jar for artists if you feel like supporting them. Of course, if you don't have the money or anything like that, please don't feel like you have to or anything. It's just there for people who want to. So I'll be leaving a link to that in the description of the video, and also probably in a comment with the timestamps for stories for this video. Please give me feedback on what you guys think about that. I'm a little bit nervous about it, but I hope it will go over well. And I hope you guys understand why I'm doing that. If you'd like to contact me, or if you have any stories you'd like to send in or that you'd like me to read, please be sure to take a look in the description of the video below. There will be links to all of my social media, including my Facebook, Twitter, and Gmail accounts. Send me a message on any of those, and I'll try to get back to you as soon as possible. If you do decide to send in a story, please be sure to include in the header of the email, or whatever you choose to send, what the title of the story is, what the theme of the story is, if it has any, and how you would like to be credited in the description of the video the story appears in. If you're curious about the music used at all in this video, the music is always in the description below, in the order which it appears in the video, and I also leave links to the artists themselves in case you like their music and would like to give them support and check out more of their work. And of course, if you have any constructive criticism, please be sure to leave it in the comments below, as I'm always looking for new ways to improve the channel. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope you guys have a wonderful day.